All good things must come to an end, including Microsoft certifications.
Yeah, that's actually,
It's kind of big, like,
I don't want to say it's shocking, but
yeah.
um, I assume I sort of found out about this from a YouTube video, right? So
hmm
I don't know if Microsoft actually announced this. Is
Yeah,
there
they
an
did.
official? There is. Okay.
They put a post out.
So I'd like to see what the rationale is. I assume it's because these certifications are no longer such a big deal for job seekers.
Well,
Is
let's
it?
put it this way, Paul. They are not doing any certifications for Windows Server 2019.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I feel like that thing must be so loosely deployed. I mean, it must not, they've made it really
mm,
unattractive.
pretty much,
It's like if you need it, all right, fine.
yeah,
We support 3 workloads now. File server. I mean, they must do, it must do. I mean, it must be really reduced, but
Microsoft has a graveyard out back, and they call it on premises.
they should. That would be funny.
That's what they should. I'm going to
It would
tweet
just,
that.
and they could put boxes where the graves go, like from software they used to ship in stores.
Yeah.
I used to go into Fry's Electronics in the San Francisco Bay Area,
hmm
and you could buy, and at the time, this was just astonishing to me. It was like the mid 90s, Microsoft server products in boxes, and they were put in like these plastic security containers,
hmm
and they were always like crazy, like $1,500, $2,000. They'd have one that had like multiple licenses for Windows NT Server probably at the time, and it was like $10,000 or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? Like, I'd like a roll of mints,
hmm
maybe a bag of chips, and then could I get the NT Server with 100 licenses? You know, just a weird. It was a weird thing, but
Yeah. So officially, they're retiring MCSA, MCSE, and MCSD. If none of that makes any sense to you, nothing to worry about. If you're in the process of
right,
taking any
right.
of those, you have until June 30th to pass all parts. Otherwise, you are out of your money and you're screwed. So,
I'll have to look at this announcement. I mean, I will say for people who, I think a lot of people would take these certification tests or go through the Microsoft
mhm.
Press and third-party publishers would put out books about them, how to pass certain exams.
Yeah.
You could do that stuff just to kind of learn about the product.
hmm
Um, there are incredible online resources for e-learning these days, including at Microsoft, right? They
Yep.
have, what's their main site called?
Is it Well, it's on their docs library,
Well,
but
they
they
have
have Learning Pass or whatever.
docs.microsoft.com, but
Yeah.
yeah, like Virtual Academy maybe,
hmm
or an edX. I had that on a Windows Weekly a week or two ago. If you go to edX, I think it's edX.com. They have a whole library of Microsoft online courses, and a lot of them are IT Pro based, and so would cover these same topics.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
it is. It is. That was kind of a bombshell Friday afternoon thing, sort of like right next to Cortana being no longer Cortana. But
I
I'm surprised they haven't renamed it, actually.
Cortana has been it's Cortana is actually kind of a good brand. I'm unlike say like Zune, which was kind of a terrible brand.
Is it though? I
Yeah,
mean, for what it is
yeah,
now, like,
I know.
I mean, it came from Halo, and now what is this Halo thing? It's your Microsoft 365 assistant. Is it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm trying to be kind. I mean, it has obviously been lobotomized. I mean, but
That is an appropriate term for what has happened to Cortana.
yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think we talked about this the other day. I mean, we can't pretend to be surprised at
hmm
what's happening here. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I had taken, it's not funny, but I had taken the Cortana and search stuff out of the book, and I'm
hmm
actually going to put it back in. And part of my rationale for that is that it's kind of easy to cover because there's not that much to say about it.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm sorry, I took out the standalone chapter for that
hmm
stuff. And I think I have a chapter that's just kind of like get to know Windows 10, like the basics.
hmm
And, there's not, it's gotten to the point now where it's easy to describe.
Yeah.
And before it was like, what exactly can Cortana do? The other thing is it's still very much US based. If you look at
hmm
the stuff that it does now, it's like US only. Like they're still doing this.
Yeah. One of the things I need to write up, and maybe it'll go up today,
Mhm.
is Microsoft is testing, like they're doing like different voice, I don't know, like taglines or whatever phrases that Cortana is going to be using, and I'm almost positive these are tied to the Surface upcoming earbuds. I
Oh,
believe that's why
interesting.
it was delayed, is some of this functionality, because a lot of it's related to your commute. And
Right.
so it's like play my emails, do different things while you're on a commute. And so I think this is all kind of tied together that, right, Microsoft wants these earbuds to be productivity focused. Cortana now is doing this like play my email stuff.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then, yeah, so we'll see.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of does. Kind of does. Some things that don't make sense are what Google's doing with Stadia. This report, I think, is out of Business Insider, interviewed
Yeah.
a bunch of developers, and it boils down to Google comes to you and says, "Hey, put your game on Stadia," and developers are like, "Okay, how much are you going to pay us to do that?" And they're
Yeah.
like,
Okay. Why?
"Not a lot of
Yeah.
money," and then they're like,
Yeah.
"Why?"
It's interesting. There was a throwaway line in that article that in my mind just kind of explained why
Hmm.
exclusives make sense to developers. I feel like exclusives are one of the problems of the game industry,
Hmm.
but there is a stability to that. And you could say, look, we're asking you to take a chance on just this one platform, but in response, in for doing that, we're going to give you extra money
Hmm.
essentially. So there's some stability there. Google offered them nothing, but this is very typical for this company, unfortunately. One of the arguments I made about Google and the smartphone business, which is a thing I argued for Microsoft as well when they were still doing this, was you can't just enter an established market and charge the same prices as the market leaders.
Right.
In that market, Apple and Samsung offer tremendous high quality products. You are unproven, untested. You've had unreliable products now over several generations.
Hmm.
You need to ship. You need to just take a loss on this stuff, or it has to. One of the things you can do is make it cost less.
Yep.
So the converse of that is on like a game streaming service. If you want to attract developers, you need to offer them more than they're going to get from
Hmm.
Xbox and PlayStation and all that stuff. If you really want to attract them to your platform, um, you need to go the extra mile. And Google has shown themselves incapable of doing that, I think, repeatedly.
Hmm.
You see it in the smart home market as well. I mean, where Amazon every year is very aggressive coming out with the new stuff, and Google farts out a couple of products, and that's the end of it for the year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Google is reminding me more and more of Microsoft in like maybe the early 2010s, where they
Yeah.
maybe late 2000s, where they have this idea that we're Google, we can just go into a
Yes.
market and we're
Yep.
gonna be successful. Like
Yeah.
that's
We
just,
just have to show up.
yeah,
Yeah.
we just have to show
Yeah.
up.
Yep.
And Microsoft learned very hard, $10 billion in the mobile space. That doesn't always work. And I think Google's gonna find
Yeah.
out that just because they're Google and they show up with this stuff doesn't mean it's gonna be a success.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is. It's arrogance.
Hmm. So, anyways, if you've like me and you spent $130 on this thing that is literally dusty, uh,
I was just thinking about you this morning. I mean, I canceled my pre-order at the last minute, and
mhm,
I think it was time to Microsoft shipping the first xCloud preview, where I was like, man, these guys out of the gate, already
yeah,
have more than Google is offering. The technical stuff. I mean, they're going to get it there. They're Google. They're smart. I mean, they're. I feel
oh, I
like that
don't
stuff
question the
is.
technical side. That's
Yeah,
not the issue. It's
it's the
the
problem is the relationships and your kind of history with game developers and so
mhm,
forth, and in this, like we said, the inability of this company to go the extra mile when they have to. I mean, you can't just walk in and say we're here.
yeah,
I don't know if you've noticed, but there are companies like Sony,
hmm,
Nintendo, and Microsoft, and there are humongous game publishers like Activision, EA, and so forth. So
I mean, if they were
they have
smart,
some of that stuff.
yeah,
Uh, you
if
know,
they were smart, they would do what Apple's doing, which is annoying, but it works. Is you buy an Android phone, you get a year free Stadia, right?
yeah, and that's a good example of taking a loss.
Hmm.
Apple fans tend to not like this characterization, but it's uh, they can't run Apple Music at a profit. It's impossible at that price point. Just like they can't run Apple Arcade Plus, but they subsidize it, because
Hmm.
they make tremendous profits on the hardware, and so that's something that does make sense for them. Um, Google would have to basically take a loss. I mean,
Yeah,
but
that's tough in Google world when your whole revenue
that's
model is advertising and you're trying to find new
yeah,
ones.
but that's how you subsidy. That's how you can make
Hmm.
the argument. I mean, Toys R Us used to do this. They used to attract young mothers with babies and small kids into the store
Yep.
by selling diapers at a loss. And then you get in there, and the kids are running around looking at all the bright shiny stuff, and you buy more stuff. This is a very common business model. I mean, or a common approach to business. You establish yourself. It worked out great for Toys R Us. I mean, they're still around.
Well, to be fair, that was not Toys R Us's fault. That was
actually, I mean, at the time, it did work out great. They destroyed all of the regional toy companies like KB Toys and Child World we had up in New England and whatever. So yeah, I mean, at the time, it did work. But then the internet happened
and venture capitalism bought them and loaded them up with debt, and then they couldn't pay it.
Yeah. My wife had a Toys R Us.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. Now we can't go there and revisit our past because now it's an Ocean State job lot. Oh, gosh. Which is a warehouse version of a dollar store, I think, or some kind of terrible. It's as terrible as
Isn't the warehouse version of a dollar store just Amazon?
Well, I mean, like a physical store. It's just, it's humongous, but they obviously didn't spend any money making it look nice. Like
it's just metal shelving with product.
We used to have like Paperama, and there were places like this when I grew up that were just, Coleco went out of business, and here's all their old video games on a pile or whatever it was, stuff like that. So. Building 19, that's what I was thinking of. That was a big Boston area.
What was it?
Crap store. Building 19. They would just buy stuff from companies that were going out of business or dumping stuff, and then they would just, they'd have like Persian carpets and plastic crap and clothes and old electronics.
Oh, I think TJ Maxx does that.
Yeah. Like if you ever wanted that Timex watch from the 70s,
I know that because there's one relatively close to our house. My wife will go there on occasion with my daughter, and she bought me a pair of like workout shorts. I'm like, this is great. I kid you not. The drawstring was in the wrong side. Like these were clearly like a run of shorts that were, and they were like Puma brand or something.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
Every time I put them on backwards. Like, yeah, it's these. And I think she got them, no joke, for like $3 or something. Like that's why.
Yep, that's the level of quality your wife thinks you deserve. Put them on, 8-boy. You clearly don't care.
Yep. You're not wrong, though. I mean, that's what I was painting in this weekend. So
so you use them. You got great value out of these.
I did. I got more than $3 value out of them. That is for sure. It was actually a pretty productive weekend. We got the bathroom is the only thing that's left in the bathroom now is just trim work. So
nice.
I'm basically trim and then a handrail away from being done in this basement, and I'm sure that will limp along for the next 17 years.
I spent most of the weekend working on that stupid WPF version of my program. I had to publish something, even though I know no one would read it and understand what I was talking about. I had to just get this off my chest, like how terrible it is. I want you to imagine, in the old world, like you could bring up a font dialog and it was one line of code. You could access every single thing the user selected easily. And then in WPF, they just didn't do it. So what would you have to do to recreate this dialogue? Like make the dialogue, plumb it all, connect it to stuff. I mean, it's nuts. Like it's hundreds of lines of code for something that you used to just get for free. That's what it's like to be a Microsoft programmer, Brad. I was so frustrated. I spent so much time on this. Like, sometimes like you'll stupidly explain to your wife, like what you're doing. Like she came over and just asked, she was like, are you okay? Like, no,
I'm sensing some frustration.
I'm not okay.
You know what you need to do now? You need to go build a notepad app and like Swift. I
think about the problem is like, I mean, I
would
need
be
to do a
very
version
curious
for the web, like I need to do a version in Flutter, maybe Xamarin. I don't know. Yes, but
the year of 2020. What did Paul do? He wrote 17 notepad apps.
No, but I can't. But I can't. That's the that is the problem. The times suck. Like in other words, when I finished, I basically finished like the Windows Forms version of this app. I'm like, I spent 3 months on that, maybe 4 months, whatever it was. Like, I don't want to spend that much time on this anymore.
Yeah,
I'd like to do smaller things, get them done quick, move on. And I was like, well, one way I could do that is I could just port this app I already made. But this font thing is what I'm talking about. Here's another one. Well, I spent the better part of a week trying to get fonts. I mean, this is something that in the original thing I did was automatic.
Yeah,
and there are many. The other one that's like that, by the way, in WPF that I've run into so far is keyboard shortcuts. If you have a menu and it's like edit, copy, paste, whatever. Well, those are Those actually aren't great examples, but like the go-to menu has a key. It's probably Control G or something. If you want to wire that thing up so that Control G works in particular places in the app, it is an astonishing pain in the ass. It's not in Windows Forms. You just go down to a properties box, you just check it, and you're like done, and it just works. That does not work in WPF. That's crazy. So
I'll take your word.
This fonts thing is the reason I wrote about it. It is one example of many of things where they just drop the ball when they move forward. Anyway, I'm sorry. This is just boring to people. Who cares? I spent a lot of time on this. It was terrible. It's going to continue to be terrible. I don't know if I can finish it. Not because I can't, just because I don't want to spend 6 months on it. I do want to move on to UWP and Xamarin and Swift maybe and Kotlin and Flutter and PWAs and blah, 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 blah. But I mean, I can't spend this much time every single time I do one of these things. I'm going to be 60 years old. Like, I kind of do want to move on. But it's also frustrating how crappy it is, to recreate it in Microsoft's next thing. Like, this is like 15 years later, and I'm discovering how crappy this was then. And like, they never fixed it. And that is the most frustrating thing.
Well, when you get to Silverlight, I'm going to have some news for you once you finish that one.
Yes. I'm like, this is it. They did it. It works. What happened? Oh,
oh, come on.
Well, that's why, Blazor is viewed by many as kind of Silverlight done correctly, or maybe we'll call it sustainably. Because Silverlight, the problem with it was a browser plugin, and it arrived just in time for browser plugins
to go away.
Yeah, to be just nobody wanted them anymore. Flash and Java.
Yeah, whoever would have thought giving elevated privileges to a browser would have been a mad idea.
Yeah. I mean, Steve Jobs was kind of a dick about it, but
Understatement of the week.
As is so often the case.
I recognize it's early in the week, but I'm going to say it. That's the understatement of the week right there.
Yeah. But he may have had a point.
So, all right. You got anything else to get off your chest? You feeling all right?
I don't know what just happened. I'm sorry. I need therapy. Is there a WPF therapy thing? I don't know.
I would say it's called Build, but I don't think that's going to help.
Even UWP, right? Which I feel like they really dropped the ball in further. They definitely have. I have seen some things that they like. For example, the version I made has a menu. They didn't have menu. They didn't have a menu like in the first version UWP. They actually did add that over time. So improvements happen.
It's a journey.
I'm trying to find the gem in the shit pile here. I just. There's not a lot of good news with this stuff. And I'm sorry. I have to say, the worst part about this, honestly, is I was really hoping I could come to some kind of a thing where I could say, for all the times I've crapped on UWP in particular, like, okay, actually, this is pretty good, and this is pretty good, and in many ways, it's even worse than I thought. Like, it's depressing.
Well,
it's too bad.
We're here for you.
Thank you.
And we'll be here for all of you tomorrow, because tomorrow is Tuesday.